Hey, we're back with another Lick of the Week video, and we're talking about major chord structures. In last video we covered the number 1 shape to understand where those chord tones are, the 1, the 3rd, and the 5th notes of the scale, the major triad that we talked about. Let's move up to the number 2 shape G chord, which is at the 7th and 9th frets. And this is a shape that's familiar to everybody. And again, we want to understand what this shape is made up of as far as scale notes, so that we're not just copying what a shape looks like, but that we understand how it's put together. So we need to find the 1, the 3, and the 5, those notes out of a G major scale, and find them inside of this shape so that we'll understand why our fingers are arranged this way. Now remember, we're always looking in a major chord, we're always looking for the 1st, 3rd, and 5th. We're always looking for that triad. But because the notes on the banjo get scrambled as you move around, that means that the notes that make up each shape get moved around. So that's another reason why as you move up down the neck, you're always cycling between the 3 shapes that you know, is because you're always looking for the same 3 notes, but those same 3 notes get moved around to different fret locations. So that's the reason you keep changing shapes. But it's really not that complicated once you understand what it is you're looking for. So let's find the triad notes for the number 2 shape. The 3rd string at 7 is a D note. How do we know that? D major. Okay, let's start with the open 3rd, which is G. G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. Aha, so there is our D, which we know is the 5th note out of the G scale. That's one of our triad notes. What about the 2nd string at 8? That's a G note. How do we know that's a G note? Well, let's find it. The B string open, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. Aha, so there's the root note, or the 1st note of the scale. So we have a D on the 3rd string, a G on the 2nd. What about this 1st string? That's a B note. How do we know that's a B? Well, let's find it. Open D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B. Aha. And since we know the 1st string and 4th string, if they're fretted at the same fret location, or the same note, just an octave apart, that means we also have a lower B note on the 4th string. So guess what? Now our major triad notes are arranged differently than they were for the previous 1 shape. So we have to change our fingering to accommodate where those notes are lined up now. So we have, here's the 1 on the 2nd string, here's the 3 on the 4th and the 1st, and here's the 5th note of the scale, D. So we actually have an askewed arrangement of the same notes we had before. Before we had 1, 3, 5 lined up conveniently, almost in a straight line. Now the notes are mixed up a little, but it's the same 3 notes, G, B, and D. So there is the major triad for your number 2 shape. And again, if you move this shape anywhere on the neck, just like all 3 of the shapes that you know, they're movable. So each time you move this number 2 shape around, you also have the major triad notes for the new chord that you found. And the arrangement of the notes will always be 1, 3, 5. For the number 1 chord shape, they will always be 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. So there's the number 2 shape, finding your major triad notes. And again, it relates to any chord that looks like this. Let's move on to the bar chord. Let's go to the 12th fret, which is our next location for G major. Now you remember in the video we talked about open G tuning. In the first video, I should say. Open G tuning is really a bar chord that the nut is taking the place of your finger for forming this bar chord. At the 12th fret of your banjo, everything repeats. So you've basically taken this nut and you're moving it to the 12th fret. But we still need to identify these notes. Since everything repeats at the 12th fret, it would be the same as open, just an octave higher. So if we use standard open G tuning and we just repeat everything at 12, then we'll have a G, a D, another G, second string would be B like it is open, and the first string would be D like it is open. So it's the same as your open tuning. Now, how does this work in relation to your major triad notes? Well, if we use open, since it's the same as this, let's use the open tuning and find out where these triad notes are. The fourth string is D, and we've already found out that that's the fifth note of the scale, which is a triad note. The third string is G, which is the root note, or the first note of the scale, and that's a triad note. The B string, which is the second string open, is our third scale note. So we have the fifth, the first, and the third note, and we always know that the first string is the same as the fourth if they're on the same fret location. In this case they're both open, so we have another D note. So let's transcribe that over to this 12th fret bar chord. So we have the fifth note of the scale here, the first note of the scale here, and here's the third note of the scale, and this is another fifth. So we have the 1, 3, 5, which is the major triad, but again they're scrambled up. So now the arrangement starting on the fourth string would be 5, 1, and 3. So again, we're always looking for the first, third, and fifth notes, that major triad of a major scale, to call anything we're holding a major chord. So anywhere you locate this bar shape will give you the three notes you need to make a major chord. But the reason that we're constantly cycling through the shapes is the notes are the same, but they get scrambled on the fingerboard. So for review, here's the number 1 shape. We have the 1, the 3, and the 5 notes of the G major scale with a leftover repeated note on the first string. So we have 1, 3, 5, 1. So those are the notes of the G scale in a major triad. If we move to the number 2 shape, now the notes get scrambled slightly. Starting on the fourth string, we have the third note of the scale. Here's the fifth note. Here's the root note of the first note. And here's another third note repeated. Now if we go to the bar chord, we have starting on the fourth string, that's the fifth note of the scale. The third string is the first note. Here's the third note on the second string, and we have a repeated fifth note. So the 1, 3, 5, if I can talk this morning, triad is located in these three shapes. Even the open string tuning is a bar chord, which is one of the three shapes. So if you spend a little time working on these three shapes and trying to figure out where the notes are, something really cool happens. Now suddenly you realize how a chord is constructed. You don't have to rely exactly on what it looks like. Yeah, there's a lot of value in memorizing what a shape looks like because we are visually oriented as players. But now you should really spend a little time understanding how these chords are put together. You need to understand this basic concept of a triad, because once you do understand how those notes relate to each particular chord shape, then you can really use the fingerboard as not just a piece of wood with inlays on it for something to look at, but you also use it as a road map to help you understand where these notes are for chords. So practice the 1, 3, and the 5 in relation to the F, the D, and the bar chord, which I refer to as the 1, the 2, and the 3 shapes. And you'll go a long way into understanding how a major chord is constructed in these three shapes. So I appreciate it. Next video we'll just dabble deeper into these chord shapes. I appreciate you watching. Thanks.